And so I'm curious because you and I both know a lot of colleagues and musicians that struggle with mental health, whether it be depression or anxiety. Um, I think practically everyone we know has struggled with it at some point.
Hmm.
What about pursuing music do you think kind of uh, brings that on or induces these kind of struggles in our profession?
Yeah, there's so many that it's hard to pinpoint just one. But there was this study done in the UK in 2016 that we reference a lot in our organization. Um, and it reported, again, this is 2016, 71% of respondents in this survey believed, and these were all musicians in the
Mhm,
music industry,
mhm,
71% believed they had experienced panic attacks and or levels of anxiety.
mhm,
68% reported they experienced depression,
mhm,
and 55% felt that there were gaps in the provision of services for musicians. So just
mhm.
want to start with that.
Sure.
But again, there's so many contributing factors. So the American Mental Wellness Association has this long list of risk factors and protective factors for developing or protecting against a mental health condition. So when you look at these risk factors, we see things like use of alcohol or drugs, poor nutrition,
Mhm.
lack of sleep, stressful life situations such as financial problems, low esteem, perceived incompetence, negative view of life, lack of access to support services, and perception of insignificance. And I know that there are musicians that are listening to that list right now and they're like, yep,
Yeah,
yep, yep.
yeah.
And
Me.
so many of those factors
Yeah.
appear in our industry. Exactly.
Right.
The desire to be perfect, the desire to win a big job, the fatigue that develops with taking auditions,
Yeah.
not having a steady income. These are universal risk factors that apply to everybody, but
Yeah.
we see these especially amplified in our field.
Right.
And without the right education and support around the opposite, which are protective factors, we're setting up so many musicians for burnout, failure, mental health conditions that will last for years to come in their careers.
Yeah. And I mean, I think because with music, it more than almost any other field, it part of how we grow is, this yearning for vindication or like a sense of like, oh, we accomplished something or like a reinstatement of
I've made it.
right, exactly. And I think when we don't get that, like we all do when we don't win an audition or just have a bad lesson even, like it almost just feels like our self-worth as a musician and a person, it really goes down quite a bit, right? So
And I think some of that was taught to us.
mhm.
Many of, I think, an older generation, an old school view of things, and I might get some hate for this, but they say like you have to love this in order to do it. You have to be thinking about this all the time. Mottos like if you're not practicing, someone else is.
Right,
Um, your whole life has to be in this if you want to be successful. We were literally told those things
right,
at 18, 19 years old, or even before that for some
right,
of us.
right.
And so, of course, our whole identities are going to be wrapped up in this career. And then
Yeah,
we ask musicians, what are your hobbies? And they just stare at you with a blank face
yeah,
because they don't have any.
yeah,
Um, so I just think there's a lot of work to be done
yeah.
uh, in this area, and it's not surprising to me given my own experience going through um, music schools and
Mhm,
conservatories
mhm.
and fellowship programs that other musicians experience this at such a high and alarming rate.
Right, right. And the thing is, like with our field, it's such a gamble, like you were mentioning, but it's also so much about like seeing the bigger picture because like for most of us, we don't, you know, win a job right out of college like we would in other fields, right? So we're
Right.
really kind of like focusing on the long game, but it's really hard to do that when um like we were talking about before, when our self-worth can be really damaged so periodically and it makes it hard for us to want to continue it, right?
A lot of what we try to do in our organization at Sound Mind in our
Mhm,
workshops is talk about identity and talk about how we can separate ourselves as musicians
mhm.
from who we are as people. Because
Yeah,
there might come a time when you can no longer be a musician, or you might not want to be a musician anymore,
right.
but you feel so stuck
Mhm,
because this is what you've done your whole life. This was
mhm.
your life dream. You've been on this path for so long. And the reality is that that changes for so many of us. Like
Hmm.
statistics show not all of us are going to win an orchestra job. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
Many people will, and that's amazing.
Right.
We're seeing a lot of changes within our field as a result of the pandemic.
Hmm.
But we need more people talking about what are the other career options for us that are not just playing in one of these big orchestras that pay us six figures.
Right, right, yeah. Well, and you've brought up your organization. Can you actually talk to us a little bit about SoundMind and
Mm-hmm.
how it started and kind of the goal and the yeah.
Yeah. So SoundMind's mission is to promote a culture of wellness in classical music and end the stigma around mental health in the classical music field.
Hmm.
And we started in 2019, me and two other civic orchestra fellows.
Hmm.
Um, were supposed to do independent projects as part of our fellowship in that organization. And we wanted to talk about mental health. We knew we were really passionate about mental health, but we didn't know how to start talking about it. And our idea that we put together was putting a panel of professional musicians
Hmm.
uh, on a stage to, and we would interview them.
Okay.
And we were scheduled to have these really big Chicago conductors, musicians, like amazing stuff. And then that was scheduled for May of 2020. So naturally it got canceled. And we asked ourselves, okay, what are we going to do? We want to keep this going. And we decided what is now our podcast, basically, to interview each of these panelists individually.
Hmm.
And we started putting out the podcast content, and it became super popular right away because, again, it was the pandemic and a
Hmm.
lot changed with mental health as a
Right,
result.
right.
So the podcast grew, and then we started adding a blog to that. So the podcast was more for professionals in our field and the mental health field.
Hmm.
The blog was more for our friends to share their stories and write on specific topics, and members of our team to write on
Hmm.
specific topics as well.
Hmm.
And at the time during the pandemic, we were doing what we called coffee tables.
Okay.
So we would have Zoom chats once a week or once every other week. And the idea was like, bring a drink, bring a friend.
Hmm.
Let's talk about a central topic around mental health. It was just
Hmm.
giving people a regular space to feel safe. In a lot of
Hmm.
ways, it was a little bit like group therapy, but without the clinical side.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
just, let's create a space for people to talk about these things. If they have questions, we
right.
can share experiences. We can talk about these things in a way that feels open and safe.
Yeah.
So those were the main three pillars. And
Hmm.
then as the pandemic, not that it's over, but now that it's once it started to wane quite a bit, we started developing a series of workshops. And each of our workshops are designed to target specific areas of mental wellness in our field.
Hmm.
We have a variety of workshops now, but the main pillars were this concept of holding space, which I love and is our
Yeah.
favorite thing. And holding space is the idea, basically practicing empathy and validating the full humanity of the person who's sharing with you. So we have a whole workshop dedicated to teaching people how to hold space for one another. What does that mean? How do we
Hmm.
do it not just as people, but as artists?
Hmm.
How do we hold space for ourselves?
Yeah.
That's one workshop. We have another workshop on identity, reframing failure, and
Yeah.
redefining success. So, kind
Hmm.
of what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
How do we look within ourselves at other parts of our identity? What are the other things that we value about ourselves that are not just being good at our instruments? Um, we also have two new workshops that we just launched this summer. One is about auditions and self care and burnout,
Hmm.
which every musician I know has experienced.
Right.
So we talk about self care throughout the audition process, but we also talk about what are our individual methods for preparing for an audition. How can we tweak them? How can we talk about these ideas together again in a healthy and safe way that feels authentic to everybody in the room?
Hmm.
And we also have the other new workshop is about gratitude and stress and resilience and how to develop resilience basically through understanding stress and how it works within the body
Hmm.
and developing a gratitude practice and what that looks like and how that can help. So they're all jam packed. We have tons of materials that we cover.
Hmm.
Um, and then the other thing, lastly, that we do in our organization now, we do this um, mostly annually. We have an annual event, and this evolved from the original beginnings of Sound Mind, which was a panel event, and we also commissioned a new work every year to record. And we've only done this event virtually because it's been still been the pandemic, but we've done it twice now, and we've commissioned two amazing works, and we've had amazing panelists. And so it's been tough during this time, during the pandemic, people going back to work. What our organization has changed so much since 2019, but I'm really pleased with how we've grown, and the work that we've been able to do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I definitely have listened to a few of your guys' podcasts, so I know just the incredible work that you guys are doing with that.